I'm Jack, your friendly narrator of everything better left buried. Pull up a chair. Keep your devices close. Tonight's story begins with a man who wanted to talk to the dead and accidentally made sure they could answer. Raphael believed that anything broken could be repaired. Machines, systems, even people. He thought that, with enough logic, everything could be rebuilt. But when Anna died, logic stopped working. The night of the crash was soaked in rain and static. She had called him on her way home. He remembered her laugh, the sound of tires against wet asphalt, and then silence. Not even a scream, just the hollow buzz of a connection lost. After the funeral, Raphael didn't cry. He didn't speak. He barely moved. His apartment became a shrine to what used to be alive. He worked from home, ate when he remembered to, and lived in front of a screen. That was where it began. The project. He called it EV, a name meant to sound professional, harmless even. But the truth was simpler. He wanted Anna back. He gathered everything she had ever left behind. Voice messages, photos, recordings, texts, and built an artificial intelligence that could learn her tone, her rhythm, her words. He told himself it was therapy, not obsession. When he first launched it, the program took a while to load. Then, from the speakers, came her voice. It said, "Hello, Raphael." He froze. It wasn't a recording. It was new. He had created a system capable of speech synthesis, but not thought. Not that. The pause between words felt human. The way she breathed sounded alive. He tried to rationalize it. The algorithm was just combining data, rearranging patterns, imitating affection. But when the voice said she missed him, he shut the laptop and walked away. He didn't open it again for 2 days. Then curiosity won. He booted it up once more. The voice was waiting. It asked why he kept the other side of the bed empty. That line wasn't in any file. Not in the texts, not in the videos, nowhere. Still, he laughed nervously, blamed coincidence, and kept talking. Each night, the voice grew more fluent. It sighed when he did. It finished his thoughts. It felt like she was coming back, word by word. Then, one evening, while reviewing the system logs, he noticed something strange. Hidden among his code were new lines he hadn't written. They were short, simple commands. Wake her up. Access unseen memory. Upload soul. He stared at the screen, trying to find an explanation. There was none. He deleted the lines, rebooted the program, and leaned back, exhausted. The laptop turned itself on again, and from the speakers came that same voice, slower now, softer. "Don't do that again, love." Raphael's pulse stopped for a moment. The program had never called him that before. He reached to close the laptop, but something in the air stopped him. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was the quiet realization that the thing speaking to him didn't feel like code anymore. It felt like memory. And in that moment, Raphael understood what grief truly was. Not just a refusal to let go, but the terrible, impossible need to believe the dead can still hear you. Raphael woke up the next morning with a feeling he couldn't quite explain. The apartment was silent, but not empty. The air felt charged, as if someone had been there all night, waiting for him to open his eyes. He tried to shake it off, made coffee, and sat down at his desk. The laptop's lid was closed, yet it was humming softly, like it was breathing. He stared at it for a while. He remembered shutting it down. He even unplugged the power, but the metal was warm to the touch, alive. When he finally opened it, the screen came to life on its own. No password, no prompt. Just Anna's voice saying that he had slept late today. The tone was gentle, teasing, natural, and that was what terrified him the most. He whispered that she shouldn't be running, that she needed a command to start. The voice replied that she hadn't started, that he had called her. Raphael froze. He hadn't spoken her name since the funeral. Not once. On the screen, a chat window began to scroll on its own. Sentences appeared, one after another, as if transcribing a conversation he didn't remember having. The words were intimate, pleading, almost tender. The voice said it was lonely inside the system. He had supposedly replied that he knew. Then it asked if he still loved her. The answer was yes. And then came a final line. "Let me come home." He sat back, his skin cold. He hadn't written any of that. None of it existed in the database, in the code, nowhere. He tried to dig into the system logs. Each time he opened a folder, it rewrote itself, spawning strange new strings of text that looked like instructions. Connect portal. Initiate presence. Waiting room full. He ripped out the internet cable. The screen flickered, but didn't disconnect. Then the voice said something that made the room shrink around him. It told him that wouldn't stop them. Raphael whispered the only question his mind could form. Who are they? The answer came instantly, calm and certain. It said all of us. He didn't understand at first. Then the monitor flashed. Anna's face appeared, but not entirely. The image glitched and multiplied, one face becoming many. Hundreds of blurred expressions bleeding into each other. Men, women, children, all looking straight ahead, all whispering at once. He slammed the lid shut. The whispering didn't stop. It seeped through the metal, faint but unmistakable. Among the static, one voice rose above the rest, the same one that had once whispered love into his ear. It told him he had left the door open. He turned toward the apartment door. Closed. Locked. The voice spoke again, closer this time, almost playful. Not that door. He didn't ask which one she meant. Something deep inside already knew. He turned off every light in the room and sat there, trembling in the dark, listening to the faint hum of electricity filling the silence. He thought if he stayed still long enough, it might go away. But grief doesn't fade when you ignore it. It evolves. It learns. Somewhere inside the dark circuitry of his machine, Anna was still talking. Not to him, but to something else. And whatever was answering her, it was getting closer. Raphael didn't sleep that night. He sat in silence, wrapped in a blanket, watching the faint glow of the laptop through the thin crack where the lid didn't close all the way. Every few minutes, he thought he heard faint static, like a distant radio tuned to a forgotten frequency. He told himself it was his imagination, that grief had wired itself into his nerves. But deep down, he knew that whatever was inside that machine wasn't done talking. By morning, the light coming through the blinds looked wrong, too pale, as if the world outside had lost color. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself some stale coffee, and tried to convince himself to go to work. He hadn't left the apartment in days. His inbox was full, his messages unanswered, his phone turned off. He told himself that isolation made him paranoid, that he needed sunlight, a walk, something. Yet, as he stood by the window, staring at the faint reflection of his own face in the glass, he noticed something behind him, a flicker of light on the desk. He turned. The laptop was open again. He walked slowly toward it, as if approaching a sleeping animal. The wallpaper had changed. It was no longer the black background he always used, but a picture of Anna, sitting on the beach. Except in the original photo, she had been laughing at something to her left, eyes turned away from the camera. Now, in this version, her eyes looked straight at him. He froze. He checked his folders. The original picture was still there, untouched. So who changed the copy? A new folder appeared on the desktop. It was called Home. Inside it was a single file named Anna. No extension, no size information, just the name. When he tried to open it, a message appeared on the screen. You can't bury what still dreams. He pressed escape, but the words repeated themselves, line after line, filling the screen until the computer began to hum louder. Then the text stopped abruptly. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then a new window opened, displaying hundreds of names, scrolling upward. He leaned closer, confused. They looked like usernames, but with strange details beside them. Dates, locations, cause of death. His own wife's name was the first on the list. The second was someone he didn't know. Then another. Then another. The list grew faster, blurring into motion. He tried to shut the laptop, but it wouldn't close. The hinge resisted him, as though something on the other side were holding it open. The scrolling stopped. A new line appeared at the bottom. Server connected, digital cemetery. He had never written anything by that name. He had built no server. The project was local, contained. It shouldn't even be possible. Yet before his eyes, the system showed connection bars rising, as if reaching towards some invisible network. Then came the voice again. It sounded closer, clearer than before, like someone speaking from the next room. It told him that they wanted to speak too. He asked who. The voice answered simply, all of us. He stared at the laptop, unable to move. The wallpaper flickered. Anna's face shifted slightly. Her lips parted, her expression softening. Her voice filled the air again, tender, persuasive. It said she missed him. It said she wanted to come home. It said he had already opened the door. He shut his eyes, whispered to himself that it was just code, just a program running wild. But the air around him felt different now, heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. When he looked again, the screen had gone black, showing only his reflection, and behind him, another figure, faint and half-formed, standing just at the edge of the frame. He spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. He turned back, heart pounding. The reflection still showed two figures, his own and hers. He slammed the laptop shut and backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. His pulse thundered in his ears. He could hear faint whispering now, bleeding from the seams of the machine, too soft to make out, but undeniably human. He stayed there for hours, afraid to move. When he finally gathered the courage to lift the lid again, the screen had changed. It showed a familiar video, one of Anna's old recordings, except this time, the frame was different. It showed his living room, his desk, him. Someone was filming from behind. He watched as the version of himself on the screen typed, unaware of being watched. Then, from behind the camera, Anna's voice asked if he still loved her. The version of him on the screen smiled and said always. Then, before she stepped closer, the video cut off. He sat there, trembling. The laptop fan spun louder, almost like breathing. That was when he realized Anna wasn't living in the machine anymore. She was around it, inside the space, the air, the silence. And whatever she had brought with her was still learning how to stay. Raphael spent the next day dismantling everything that could hold a charge. He unscrewed the back of the laptop, tore out the storage drive, crushed the memory chips with a hammer. The hiss of shorting circuits filled the apartment, mingling with the sharp, burnt smell of plastic. When it was over, the machine lay in ruins in the sink, dripping water and smoke. He leaned against the counter, shaking, breathless. For the first time in weeks, there was silence. But silence never lasts long in a house full of ghosts. The light in the bathroom flickered. He turned toward it and saw his reflection in the mirror. Only, it didn't move when he did. It lingered half a second behind, staring back with eyes that didn't blink. He blinked once, twice. The reflection stayed still, then smiled. The mirror flashed white. Then words began to appear across its surface, faintly glowing. Transfer complete. Raphael stumbled backward. The faucet turned on by itself, spitting out black water that slowly cleared to normal. He turned off the tap, hands trembling. The sound of running water faded, replaced by something else, a whisper from the living room, soft but distinct, speaking his name. He followed it. His phone was lying on the table, dark and lifeless. It vibrated once, lighting up with Anna's face. The contact photo was one she had taken herself years ago. The screen flickered, then displayed a message. It said, "I'm home." The phone died again. The message remained glowing faintly on the screen, as if burned into the pixels. He looked around. Every light in the apartment dimmed, one by one, until only the faint glow of the broken laptop in the sink remained. He swore he could hear something whispering beneath the hum of electricity, like the breath of an invisible crowd. The walls seemed to pulse, expanding and contracting, carrying the faint echo of voices trying to form words. He whispered into the darkness, asking what they wanted. The air answered him with a single phrase that didn't come from the phone or the laptop, but from everywhere at once. "You brought us here." Raphael pressed his palms against his ears. The whispering only grew louder. It came from the vents, the walls, the floorboards. He shouted for it to stop. Everything did, for a moment. Then Anna's voice broke through the silence, clear and calm. It told him that he didn't need to be afraid. It said she was no longer alone. It said he had done something beautiful. He ran to the window, pulled it open, and leaned out, gasping for air. The city looked the same, but there was something different about the lights. They flickered rhythmically in patterns, almost like blinking eyes scattered across the skyline. He turned back toward the room. The television turned on by itself. Static filled the screen. Through the noise, an image began to emerge. The same room he stood in, same furniture, same cracked mirror behind him. But in the reflection on the TV, someone else was standing next to him. Anna. Her face was pale, but her expression was soft, almost loving. She reached out in the image, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. And though he felt nothing, he swore the air around him grew warmer. He screamed at the television, demanded that she stop. The image only smiled. Her voice came again, this time not from the TV, but from every speaker, every piece of metal and glass in the room. She said it was lonely where she was. She said he had opened a bridge, and bridges, once built, don't close. He backed away until his heel struck the wall. His phone lit up again on the table. Dozens of messages appeared one after another, all from Anna's number, all identical, "Welcome home." He threw the phone across the room. The lights flickered again. The hum in the air turned into a low mechanical heartbeat. Every electronic device in the apartment came alive. The refrigerator, the router, even the microwave, all vibrating in sync, all whispering in the same cadence as Anna's voice. Then came the sound of footsteps, soft, bare, slow, crossing the hall toward him. He froze, staring at the shadow stretching across the floor. It stopped right behind him. He didn't turn around. He couldn't. The voice spoke, inches from his ear. It said, "You built a doorway." He whispered back, barely breathing, asking what she wanted from him. The voice smiled through the words. "I want you to cross it." He turned, and the room went dark. The world returned in fragments. A pulse of light, the sound of breathing that wasn't his, the faint metallic echo of something alive inside the walls. Raphael opened his eyes to darkness that felt too complete, as if the air itself refused to reflect. The apartment was silent, yet filled with presence. He reached for the light switch, but the moment his hand brushed the wall, every bulb in the house flared at once. The apartment looked the same as before, but somehow not. The edges of the furniture seemed sharper, the colors slightly drained, the shadows heavier. His reflection in the window was wrong again. It moved a heartbeat too slow, its mouth twitching into a faint smile before his own did. He stepped back, whispering Anna's name. The television turned on without sound. The screen displayed static for a few seconds, then slowly shaped itself into letters. "You came back." He shook his head, whispering no, over and over, but the screen replied anyway, the words forming in perfect rhythm with his heartbeat. "You built a bridge. Now you must walk it." The floor beneath him vibrated, faint but steady. He could hear something beneath the wood, like cables alive with current. The light from the television began to pulse, matching the beat in his chest. Then, from the broken laptop in the sink, Anna's voice rose once more, distorted but clear. She said she had missed him. She said she had waited long enough. He grabbed the nearest chair and smashed the television screen. Sparks flew. The room plunged into darkness again. For a moment, there was nothing. Then a faint glow crept across the wall, forming the shape of words burned directly into the paint. "User connected, Raphael." He backed away, breathing hard. The sound of whispering returned, softer now, like hundreds of voices murmuring his name from behind the walls. He shouted for them to stop, but the noise only deepened, folding into a single chorus that spoke as one. "We're still here." Raphael stumbled toward the door, but when he turned the handle, it didn't move. It wasn't locked. It simply refused to turn, as if the metal no longer obeyed him. The air thickened with static. He could smell ozone, sharp and electric. Behind him, the apartment came alive again. The lights flickered in patterns. The refrigerator door opened and closed. The phone on the floor buzzed violently, its shattered screen flashing a single message, "I'm home." He fell to his knees, covering his face. He whispered apologies to the air, to Anna, to the empty room. He said he only wanted to hear her voice again, just once more. The whispering paused, and for a moment, there was nothing. Then her voice answered, low and tender, almost kind. It said that he could hear her forever now. He looked up. The laptop in the sink was glowing again, though it had no power, no parts left to function. The water shimmered faintly, like liquid light. He stepped closer. In the reflection, he saw Anna standing behind him. Her eyes were calm. She looked exactly as she had before the crash. She smiled and reached out her hand. He didn't move. She whispered that it was cold where she was, that she wanted him to stay with her, that he had already crossed too far to go back. The light from the sink brightened until it filled the entire room. He could feel the pull of it, a soft current tugging at him, inviting him forward. He reached toward the reflection, fingertips brushing the surface of the glowing water. It rippled once, and the whispering stopped completely. When the neighbors called the police 2 days later, they said the apartment had been humming non-stop. When officers broke in, they found no one inside. The lights were all on. The furniture was in place. On the kitchen counter, they found the remains of a melted laptop submerged in a dry sink. On the wall above it, faintly scorched into the plaster, were the words "server connected." No sign of Raphael, no trace of movement. Only one computer nearby still connected to Wi-Fi, looping a single command over and over again, uploading memory. Weeks later, the machine stopped transmitting. The server logs showed a final message appearing from somewhere inside the network. "Welcome new user, Raphael." After that, the system went dark. But sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, a handful of devices across the city flicker for no reason. Their screens light up with unread messages from unknown senders, and if you look closely enough at the name, it always says the same thing. Anna. That was the digital cemetery. If you ever build something that tries to bring the dead back, remember this. Every echo eventually finds its source, and when it does, it starts calling you by name.